What up, y'all? The doctor's back. Week 13 in NFL. Let's do some football. Um, I know I'm not really broadcasting to a large audience, just more being in character. Uh, Fun to go back and watch. Waiting for some of these college results and NBA to come in. I did the video earlier, so we'll see how it goes. Again, try to focusing on double up, and then obviously any other opportunities to make money or things we should be focusing on. Again, always encourage people to kind of bet on money and be responsible and put your own spin on it. Trust your instincts, that kind of thing. But we're gonna break down the NFL. I think it's 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, it looks like a 12 game slate. Kind of go game by game, talk about it from a DFS Fanduel perspective, and then any kind of bets that we can focus on to see what comes out of it. So the first game, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to Atlanta. Um, it's like a fairly low total. Pittsburgh doesn't really have any dramatic injuries. They're fairly healthy on the offensive side of the ball. Again, I don't really study the offensive line per se, but in terms of like skill positions, they're pretty intact. I don't love a lot here, I'll be honest. I respect Atlanta's defense at home enough to where I don't know that they're going to let anybody really go off. Najee Harris did get hurt last week, but it looks like he's on track to play. But at 7.3K, I'm not really interested. If I was going to play a Steeler, if I have any shares, it'll probably be George Pickens. Um, I think him and Pickett have a pretty good rapport, and so and he tends to make some very difficult catches. Uh, he does tend to kind of maybe give up the easy ones here and there, but there's definitely some a little bit of upside there. Um, but even in terms of even their betting props, I'm not really chasing anything there. I think something safe would be like Fryermuth getting to 25 yards and maybe Pickens at 25 yards, but nothing outside of that would really excite me with the Steelers. I feel very kind of eh on the Steelers this week. On the Atlanta side, if I was going to bet on anybody to get a touchdown in this game, it would be Cordell Patterson. He just kind of has a nose for the end zone, especially in that building. Plus, he gets involved in so many different ways. He's obviously a part of a three, maybe even three and a half uh, headed monster in the backfield. But he also lines up a receiver. He even returns kicks. So, with touchdowns being as important as they are in FanDuel, he has a lot of ways he can get there. And at 6.4K, I think that's a buy price for him at home in this matchup. So that's just something and even from a betting perspective, I'd be looking at some of his props, especially like I think it's 59 and a half his combined yardage prop. That's a pretty. I think he gets there. A sneaky FanDuel kind of large field tournament play would be like Mariota. I hate that they don't have Kyle Pitts because I would like that call even more because the opportunity with him in the legs, rushing 40, 50 yards with a touchdown. If he was able to kind of maybe throw a touchdown or two, then that would get you a score at 6.8K. That would get you excited. Again, I'm not calling that. Like I said, I wish Pitts was there. But his rushing props are definitely in play. I'd be looking at those, in kind of a lottery ticket type fashion. So, because at receiving it's Drake London, and it's just kind of a bunch of guys who can run deep and periodically catch a deep ball, but they don't do it with any kind of efficiency or regularity. So that's really all I have for this game. So we'll move on to the next, which will be the Commanders, going to New York to face the Giants. And interesting, the Commanders are favored in this game. So that's the first part of this that gets interesting. We'll talk about injuries. Washington doesn't really have anything to speak of. I did see, doesn't look like Chase Young's going to play. He's their, really young, talented defensive end. That would have really added some more mojo to a defense that's already kind of doing some good things. So I get that's a good thing for the Giants. But they're still pretty formidable from a defensive perspective. But just to kind of cover them on offense, I think looking at their pricing on FanDuel, I'm not really in love with the running backs. I don't play this quarterback. There's really no ceiling there. But he does have a relationship with Terry McLaurin that I do like, and at 6.9K, he would be a player that's in my pool on FanDuel. He's probably a top 12 play at receiver this week. They have a connection. He goes to him a lot, and they're really, like I said, they have a committee at backfield. They're both decent, but not enough to really prioritize from a DFS perspective or really attacking their props hard. Samuel's always a sneaky kind of backdoor play because he has he gets a lot of those end arounds and he gets some receiving touchdowns and yards. But again, I'm not prioritizing that. I'm not really thinking there's anything there. Same with their rookie, Jahan Dotson. Um, I think he only had one target last week. So again, I respect the secondary of the Giants at home. As a matter of fact, I think the Giants win this game. I think they kind of have taken a step back, and I think they find their mojo a little bit at home. And as we segue to that, I think they do that by riding Saquon Barkley. Again, Washington's defense is good, but I think between the combined threat of rush and receiving, he can get there. Now, a big part of this is going to be um, they have a lot of banged up receivers for the Giants. Slayton, uh, Galladay, James, they're all kind of questionable. So Slayton being the obvious important one there, they have a chemistry. Jones and him lately. Slayton's made some big plays. So if he plays, I really like the Giants' chances a lot in this game. If he doesn't, it really becomes difficult. They're really going to have to kind of outwit and out hustle and out think the Giants. I mean, the Commanders in this game. Daniel Jones at 7.2K. Again, if he doesn't have his receiving core, I would just attack his rushing props. He's definitely gonna be have some rushing upside. Um, and Barkley at 8.6K. Again, he's not um, an upper echelon. I mean, I would say he's probably above average play, but he's not the top play. But he definitely has two touchdown upside with some combined yardage. I think this game stays close enough where the rushing in both sides stays in play longer. I don't think either team gets way out ahead, so that's going to help with the rushing props, especially for Barkley. On some of these other matchups, they kind of abandoned the run earlier and look to go to the passing game with him and Breida. So I feel a little safer, but I wouldn't go crazy unless he's able to break a long one. Um, that's really it for this game. Going to the Packers and the Bears. A lot of you know, and they say when I say a lot of you, I'm talking probably to John and like three other people. I don't have a lot of people watching. I'm just in character, as I mentioned. But I'm a Packers fan, really going back to the Brett Favre days. So I just kind of fell into the culture and just kind of follow it to this day. This is a matchup that by default I would normally just 100%. It's the Packers win. It's not even a question. This is going to be an interesting matchup because Justin Fields is going to play. And one other key injury to pay attention to that I think is bigger than probably most people realize is Romeo Dobbs is questionable for the Packers. Um, if he plays, it really helps Green Bay on the offensive side tremendously, and I think could be maybe I don't want to say the difference, but it really helps a lot because then the receiving core, you have Lazard and Watson's big play, Dobbs being that other guy that can make plays along with Randall Cobb. I don't really count Sammy Watkins anymore, but him playing keeps Sammy Watkins off the field, so that's always a good thing. Um, so looking at the Green Bay side, I think Aaron Rodgers when he comes to Chicago, he just kind of does his thing, and I don't know that it's going to change much tomorrow. Even though with their depleted, I think they're going to be up for this game. And I think a very sneaky play, especially on FanDuel, is Robert Tunyon at 4.9K. This could be a Tunyon game. I don't know why. I just kind of feel it. Um, and that's crazy because now he's actually getting some of the receivers back. But I think that helps Tunyon take some of the attention off him and open up the middle of the field. I think the Bears could be a little vulnerable there. We'll see. Um, and then obviously when I'm Rogers at 7.1K on FanDuel, that's okay. Again, he's not a top option, but he's kind of like a you know big field tournament type play. You can pair him up with any one of these receivers, especially Watson and or Lazard to a lesser degree. In that mix too, I'd also throw in Aaron Jones. He has a tendency to kind of show up. This is the kind of game where he could have a big day. It's very volatile, so by no means is any of this safe with Aaron Jones. But so it's either boom or bust. He's either two touchdowns and a buck 20, or he'll run for 32 yards and catch for 32 yards, and AJ Dillon will be falling everywhere. So um, that's kind of how I see this game. I think it could be Like I said, it's boom or bust with Jones. It's either he's gonna, and you'll be able to tell kind of early too. I think that if he gets in the rhythm early, he just tends to kind of, uh, you know, rip off plays in big chunks and go crazy. If I'm betting, I like the Christian Watt. I would be looking at, lottery ticket type like Christian Watson bets. Because if he does break it's going to be, probably a long one. So we'll see. Um, and that's pretty much it on the Green Bay side. With Justin Fields playing, it does change the dynamic of this game because let's just say he's 100% healthy. I mean, the guy was, playing out of his mind, especially with the rushing. So I'd be betting on him again with the touchdown. Um, in the last game, Barkley's my touchdown pick. In this game, it would be Fields or Montgomery, but I would probably just, if I had one pick, it would be Fields just because it's just working. Um, I do like David Montgomery in this game, especially with Khalil Herbert out. He just is going to carry the workload. I mean, Green Bay has a solid defense, but they're by no means, uh, indestructible. So Montgomery does get involved a little more recently in the passing game too. So I wouldn't surprise me if he got in and got a bunch of yards. The one thing that hurts the Bears is their top receiver Darnell Mooney is out, and obviously him and Fields had started to develop a little bit of a relationship and chemistry, and so with him being out, this is where it could get interesting for the Bears because to me, your top target at that point becomes your tight end Cole Kmet. Um, the Chase Claypool dynamic should be interesting because it's really hard to predict because I thought he'd have got more involved even with Mooney on the field by now, and it hasn't happened. So I don't know if it's because now they have to force it. He's going to be out there, but I mean their receiving core is probably going to be like Claypool, Pringle, and St. Brown with maybe a sprinkle of Dante Pettis. So certainly doesn't scare you. So I'd be curious to see how Green Bay's defense really just kind of um, I don't know. This you could chase the Claypool coming out party. Maybe that they game plan for that. I just can't really predict it to that degree. I think that it's Fields rushing props. Fields on FanDuel at 8.5K. I do like because of his legs and Montgomery is 7K on FanDuel. So that's another as Clemson is running back at pick six. So irritating. So yeah, Montgomery and Fields are the plays to me on FanDuel, and then dart throws at Claypool just in case this is his coming out party, and then you could pair Fields with Cole Kmet. They have a good relationship, and I think that that's a thing. So that's kind of what I have for this game. Again, I would, you know, this game to me is a coin flip. I think it really depends upon, if the Bears if the Packers are on their A game, they're probably going to win this. But if I'm betting, I would take the Bears with some points, and even just in one of my lottery tickets, picking the Bears to win outright because they're an underdog at home. So this is not a stellar Green Bay team by no stretch of the imagination. Moving on, Jets at Minnesota. Again, not a huge total here. Mike White at the helm for the Jets. He had his coming out party last week. Not that he hadn't done that. I mean, some people, that was always there. He has big game upside. So it's not too much of a surprise. Going to Minnesota, Minnesota is definitely not a defense that has resistance. So you can definitely put up some points and yards here. The running back situation, I think Carter won't play. So now you've got a backfield of Zonovan Knight, who actually looked pretty good last week. He was taking a lot of steam away from Carter when a lot of people thought Carter was going to, including myself, get a really massive workload, but I think he got hurt. Then you've got Ty Johnson, who got in the end zone and actually had some good plays last week. And then we'll see about James Robinson. If he's inactive like he was last week, I believe he was a healthy scratch. Then I like Zonovan Knight a little more. If he's not, if he's in there, it's a three-headed monster, and I think all of them take a step back because then it becomes really difficult to tell. I think Knight will get the first crack, thus he deserves some looks. Um, but I think the person that really stood out for the Jets last week was Garrett Wilson. He looked really good. Um, Looked explosive, and looked like there was a connection right there with Mike White. I think he looked to him, so I wouldn't go away from that. I think that that's a nice combo in FanDuel. Mike White is 6.9K. That's a great price. Um, Again, I don't think he's a top five play this week, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if um, if he had a nice day. And Garrett Wilson is 6.6K. That's a great price. Um, and then you could always throw a dart at Elijah Moore, who rose from the dead last week, and to a much lesser degree, Corey Davis. But I'm not really thinking there. Nobody else really in play from a fan DFS perspective. And again, I'd be looking at Garrett Wilson if I was going to be looking at props to Tack and even Mike White, depending on what they are. On the Minnesota side, obviously everything with them starts with Justin Jefferson. He's 8.7K. That's a discount compared to where he could be and should be. So he's in play. One of the things you like about him, he's hard to really like shut down depending on the matchup because he moves all over the field. The Jets have a good cornerback in Sauce Gardner that really tends to do pretty well against some of these players, but Justin Jefferson is matchup proof. And like I said, for the reasons that I mentioned and just because of the talent. So he's probably a top three receiver to me. And I'm attacking his props. Um, Kirk Cousins. The Jets defense is very respectable, so I don't think he goes crazy, but I think he can give you some good floor play. And so as Dalvin Cook is down to 7.6K, partly because on Thanksgiving he was a disaster. I just needed him to get to 50 yards, and he was at 40, and he had about 8 more carries for 3 yards. It was a disaster. I'm looking for him to bounce back. So I think he gets in the end zone. Him or Jefferson are my picks to get in the end zone in this game. Um, I would pick Jefferson before him, but I think Cook could uh, find a way, maybe break a long one or a semi-long one to get in on this defense. But at 7.6K, that's a price that he's definitely a buy. You can't ignore that at home, especially. He gets the touches, he gets the looks. And then you could throw a dart at TJ Hawkinson. He's 6.4K. So the tight ends aren't that impressive. So he's definitely in the upper echelon of one. And him being on this team, I think helps. If people overkey on Jefferson, then the middle field should be open. And like even Thielen is starting to get more looks now ever since they got um, Hawkinson. Just feels more open. So even Thielen's in play. Um, so that's what I have in this game. I like Minnesota obviously to win the game. But I think the Jets, the way they're coached, I think they believe. This guy Mike White has kind of injected something into him, so it'll be interesting to see the dynamic. Minnesota is favored; they should probably find a way to win the game, but probably a competitive game, and I don't think it's too high scoring. But I would feel comfortable. If I had like the Jets with some points in a parlay. I would feel pretty safe with that. Cleveland at Houston. Sean Watson going back to the scene of the crime. But clearly Vegas thinks he is going to have an impact. They have a 27-point total, implied total, which is huge. I think is the highest of the slate, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I don't think there's a team predicted to score more than Cleveland tomorrow. Do I think that comes to fruition? Probably not. I would probably take the field against that number, but nevertheless, that's a thing. We got to pay attention to that. Um, Injuries, Cleveland, I don't really see anything that stands out except for the Njoku news that he's out. So that puts Harrison Bryant, and again, in play. A very cheap tight end on FanDuel at 4.7K. Definitely has a nose for the end zone. It'll be interesting to see his rapport with Watson, and that goes for really the whole receiving core. They have had some time to practice together, and Watson's a pretty talented quarterback. So, Watson at 8K, I'm kind of in a wait and see. Even though he's going back, he's probably going to be fairly motivated. I definitely think he's a tournament dart throw. Houston is so bad against the run, and even at 9.6K, which I rarely would pay that, especially for Nick Chubb, if there was a matchup that you were going to pay 9.6K for, it would have to be this one on paper. Again, I'm not going to go crazy because it is expensive, and it would take 2 touchdowns and 100 plus yards for him to kind of get to where he needs to be to help you win. But it is doable against this team. I had Derrick Henry did it. I think Derrick Henry had like 202 touchdowns. So again, this could be one of those days, and maybe one of the things that I'm going to kind of do to go be different is maybe predict that this is one of those games that Kareem Hunt gets the touchdowns. Maybe they start looking to throw this guy a bone. So we'll see. But definitely got to like Nick Chubb on paper. And I'll be curious to see Amari Cooper, right? He's made some plays. So I think the idea of Watson and Cooper, we'll see how that dynamic plays itself. It's definitely something to play around with there. On the Houston side, it's no bueno. Um, a lot of you'll see that in the second half of last week's game, they started to like make it look like they were coming back against Miami after they benched two and some of their players, and maybe they developed a little bit of the rhythm. But let me just tell you, this receiving core is a disaster, and now they don't have Brandon Cooks; he's out, so it really takes away from their ability to be explosive. A very inexperienced quarterback. I mean, you have to like Pierce just based on workload. 6.5K, you would hope and you would think the game plan is give this ball to this guy, a bunch. It's just going to be tough. I don't think the game script's going to allow for that because on paper it looks like Cleveland's going to get out to a lead and it's going to hurt the run. But again, he does get involved in the passing game. I thought I saw Burkhead get hurt, but I think he's playing. So he's always a possibility to get involved along with Agunbuale. So who knows? Again, I'm not rushing to play Pierce, but again, I'd have a sprinkle or two of them just in case he shows some of the flashes that he did early in the season. He's been brutal the last couple of weeks. So again, wouldn't be having high expectations, wouldn't be chasing, his props unless it was just really like you know, kind of like a lottery ticket, a low cost lottery ticket. That's all I'm doing there. All right, next game. Titans at the Eagles. Eagles are favored. They're at home. The Titans are, at least looks like they're fairly healthy on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, they've got Burks and Woods and Derrick Henry. As long as you have Derrick Henry, you're healthy, and you got Tannehill. So, but I don't know. Going into Philly, just on paper, doesn't feel like a great matchup. It's not. And even Derrick Henry at 8.8K on Fanduel, I'm not going to run to play that. He's always in play because he's Derrick Henry, but this is on the less side of me thinking he's going to have a breakout game. He's going to get touches, but a lot of teams have just been selling out to stop him and just kind of daring Tannehill to beat him. So again, it opens up people like Traylon Burks at 6.1K. He seems to have that it factor, that mojo. So I'll have sprinkles of him. Outside of that, they only have a 20-point implied total. So Vegas isn't expecting them to do a lot. I'm not expecting them to do a lot. Um, Eagles aren't a generous defense, so on paper this doesn't look great for Tennessee. So I'm not chasing really any of their props. Uh, if I'm betting a touchdown this game, I'm probably going to go to AJ Brown, um, followed by a side order of Jalen Hurts. They're just pretty explosive. I think tomorrow's a big AJ Brown day. I kind of felt that way last week, but for different reasons. But Tennessee is really a pass funnel, and I just think he has a big day. And I think he only had like 30 something yards last week. He had a fumble, it was a bad one, so I think he atones for that this week. I think it's a big AJ Brown day. I think it's a big Jalen Hurts day. So they're both. AJ Brown's 8.1 on FanDuel. I think he's a top three play tomorrow. Jalen Hurts is 8.8K. His rushing upside is similar to Fields, uh, with much better weapons around him from a passing perspective. So, Hurts I think is the top three quarterback play tomorrow with Mahomes and Fields. So, um, Miles Sanders again 7.2K. That's a good price for him considering the production you've been getting from him. And I think he still has a pretty solid day tomorrow. So I'm attacking Hurts props. I'm attacking AJ Brown props, and to a lesser degree, but still fairly confidently, Miles Sanders props. Um, I like Philly tomorrow. Uh, I think they do well, and obviously, you always have to pay attention to like the vulture touchdowns of Gainwell, even sometimes Boston Scott. But um, Devontae Smith at 6.8K still in play as well. But those are the main plays that I like on Philly. All right, going to Jacksonville at Detroit. This should be very interesting. It's a 52, 51 and a half implied total, so one of the higher expected matchups. Um, Obviously, big news in this game that you're going to need is, and I don't think it's official, well, it probably won't be official until tomorrow, is if the running back for the Jaguars, ETN, is going to play. He's very explosive, and if he was going to play, that would really help the Jaguars. And I even think Zay Jones, the receiver who had a big game last week, is questionable. So um, that really, like to me, the ETN news is very pivotal for this team, and to a lesser degree the slate because I don't like Jacksonville nowhere near as much without him. Um, I think the mainstay part of that is Christian Kirk and Lawrence. Christian Kirk is 7.5K, and his Lions defense, I'm sorry, is very giving. So Kirk could have a big day. Marvin Jones used to play for Detroit, so if you're a narrative person, he can end up doing something going back there. They may look for him. Evan Ingram is all the way down at 4.8K. That's just a price that you got to pay attention to. But again, he's Evan Ingram, so just be mindful of that. Um, 7.5K Lawrence. I guess he's kind of in play, but it's not one of those things that he's definitely not in the upper. He's not a top 10 play tomorrow. I don't think so. Uh, I'd be looking at maybe the Christian Kirk props. Now, if ETN plays, I do kind of like him a little bit, but it just depends on how healthy he is. It's really tough to prioritize a player like that coming off of a leg injury. So we'll see. On the Detroit side, I think there's some sneaky upside with this team. I'm really liking Detroit. I like Jared Goff at 6.8K a lot, and I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. His receiving course is getting really healthy. You've got, I believe, the rookie is going to make his debut tomorrow, Jamison Williams. Don't know how much running he's going to get, but just being on the field with St. Brown. And DJ Chark, again, narrative, he used to play for the Jaguars. I believe he got in the end zone last week. So I like him in a tournament, kind of millie maker, you know, kind of upside. I like though, and even obviously Jamal Williams. This guy, all he does is score touchdowns. Poor DeAndre Swift. He's 6.4K. Don't think you can play him. Um, I wish they would more, especially at home. He just looks like a stud when he gets the ball a lot, but they're just kind of being extra careful, I guess. I don't know what it is. Plus, I mean, Jamal Williams has done well for them. He just lacks that explosiveness. But he's very tough. A lot of yards after the catch. So Williams is in play, especially for a touchdown. Obviously he's the safe bet here for a touchdown. But these receivers, especially St. Brown, and like I said, a sneaky DJ Chark with Jared Goff, I think that those plays have upside for tomorrow. I don't know how popular they'll be. I mean, they do have a 26-point total, so maybe when we think about ownership and who's going to be super popular, pay attention to that. Get different somewhere else in your lineup if you're going to go with this. That's important to make sure that you can be in the upper echelon of the standings at the end of the night. I definitely would be tacking Jared Goff props and like St. Brown. If there's Chark, I don't even know if Chark has props, but I definitely, as a sneaky kind of like lottery ticket, I think there's something there. All right, winding down. Denver at Baltimore. This is a disaster. Denver is they have a 15-point total, and I don't even know what to tell you about this team. The only thing I even remotely like is the tight end Dolchich at 5.2K. He's a stud. He's a talent. Problem is he's got Russell Wilson throwing the ball, and he can't see anymore. So you can't love anybody from Denver just based on their team dynamic right now and just what they got going on, and they're just not playing well. On top of the fact that who knows if Sutton and or Judy are going to play. So that adds to that dynamic because the receiving core is not good after that. I think it's more likely that Sutton plays and maybe Judy doesn't, but no matter what, I'm not playing any Latavius Murray. He wasn't at Baltimore long enough to really feel any type of way. It's not a revenge game for him. And again, I think Baltimore just kind of just stifles this team tomorrow. So I think it's a big, Baltimore defense game. God, North Carolina can't play any defense. Um, Gus Edwards is the play here for me from a touchdown perspective. And we'll see if Lamar Jackson, is healthy enough to run around tomorrow. Be careful with some of his, props in terms of rushing and stuff. I mean, he's Lamar Jackson. He's going to run, but he's coming off a quad injury, and I don't think they need to really jeopardize it. He's probably just going to. I mean, I think it's a big Andrews and Gus Edwards day, but we'll see. You could throw a dart at either Duvernay or even Deshaun Jackson to get deep for one. Deshaun's 5K, Duvernay 5.5K, so we'll see. But Andrew's price has come down to 7.1K, so you like that, especially when you got Kelsey at 8.4K. There's like $1,300 in savings there. Jackson's 8.2K, so he's in play. But again, I mean, Denver does have an okay defense, so I don't think that they score 40 or anything. But again, I think their offense hurts them, and it could put Baltimore in some advantageous position. So Gus Edwards at 6.7K on Fanduel, I like, along with Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson. Miami at San Francisco. This is actually going to be an interesting game. On the Miami side, I don't know that there's. It's crazy because you've got the running backs for Miami are Wilson and Mostert, who used to play with Miami. They both played there this year, and now they are in Miami. So this is Mostert used to play for San Francisco, not this year, and Wilson was there a couple weeks ago. So again, maybe they're a little more juiced, but when you're talking about Miami, it's a passing game, right? It's Tua, it's Tyreek, it's Waddle. Those guys are always in play. Tua 7.8K. It's a very fair price. There's no price that's too high for Tyreek Hill when he's on his game. Obviously San Francisco has a solid defense, but I don't know that a lot of teams are ready for the Hill Waddle dynamic. You can't shut it down completely. So a lot of times it's a matter of who's going to get the touchdown with these two. Um, but if Tyreek gets deep, forget about it. It's going to be a big day for him. So I like those three in play. Not big on the running backs. Wilson at 6.8K, Mostert at 6K. Complete dart throws, but don't have any high expectations for them. On the San Francisco side, I think Debo Samuel is looking on the bad end of questionable, which will really change things for them. I think McCaffrey is questionable, but I think he's playing. And with Elijah Mitchell's on IR, so he's not playing for sure, which uh, definitely changes things for San Francisco. If Debo plays, they're just hard to beat at home with that kind of mix because they have so many different directions they can go. I still think they're going to be tough to beat. I think it's a big McCaffrey day tomorrow if he's healthy. This is where like the pregame and some of that stuff I'd like to get a look and stuff like that. But if he's out there, just assume he's healthy. And I think that he gets both the rushing and the receiving. So I think I'll be looking at those props. I'll be going at those. I like Jimmy G tomorrow on FanDuel. He's 7K. If Debo doesn't play, then it's Ayuk and Jennings and then Kittle. And on McCaffrey, I think he's going to sprinkle the ball around, but that could end up being, a 250 and two touchdown day for him, which gets him where he needs to be, at 7K. So we'll obviously watch for that news because the Debo has a big impact on him. If for some reason McCaffrey doesn't play and the Debo plays, then you just got to love Samuel because he's going to get running and receiving, a lot of run at running back because then they got something called Jordan Mason after McCaffrey in the backfield. So um, that's it for this game. Moving on to the final two late games. Oh no, there's three more late games. You got Seattle at the Rams. And I just gotta say, I don't really love this game from a fantasy perspective, DFS and/or betting, because it's just really going to be. I don't know. It feels like it could be a sloppy game. Seattle on paper looks pretty good. They have a 24-point total. You've got, you know, um, all the pieces intact on offense. Um, if I was going to play, a Seahawk, it would probably be Kenneth Walker at 8.1K, but I'm not rushing to play him. I don't think he's one of the better plays on FanDuel. It's just going to be a matter of Gino and Metcalf can hook up, or I probably like Lockett a little bit more. I'm not scared of Jalen Ramsey or anything like that. Um, but I think the Rams still have a little bit of pride, at least on the defensive side of the ball. They're just not, they don't have any options in the offense anymore, so it's just very difficult to put up any kind of sense of resistance. So I think that's one of the things we look at there. Um, so I'm not attacking really any of the props in this game from the Seattle side, and I'm not going to have a lot of shares of them. So again, if that's going to be the consensus feeling, then that would be a reason to play them in a big tournament because nobody will be on them. But we'll see how that goes. On the Rams side, it's just no bueno. I think there's a couple sneaky pieces, and I don't even know how sneaky they are after last week. But Van Jefferson at 5.9K, I saw some things that I liked when I was watching the game, and he literally is the de facto number one receiver right now. So, um, the quarterback is. I think they went back to this Wolford guy who definitely has rushing upside. He's at 6.4K. I'm not playing him. Seattle is not a great defense, so don't be super surprised if the Rams do a little something on offense. And I believe the running back's going to be that Kyron Williams dude. I think Akers is going to back him up. So I think they're going to give this Kyron Williams, who did okay. I saw him pick up a couple blitzes in the game last week, which is interesting for a young guy. He's only 5.5K, so I'll definitely have shares of a running back that's that cheap. He could fall in the end zone, get some receiving if they get down. So everything, as long as he gets the majority of the snaps, then you like it. But they do have Cam Akers, and they still have the Ronnie Rivers dude, um, who's played sporadically, but he's there. But Van Jefferson, I kind of like tomorrow, so just keep your eye on that as a sneaky play on Fanduel. All right, Chargers at Raiders, another interesting game that is waiting on some big news. So on the Chargers side, they look pretty good, except Mike Williams still not back yet, but they've been like that for a while now. So all the other pieces, Eckler's just usually too expensive for me to play. I don't usually prioritize him at 9.2K. You can always play him, and nobody could ever really be that upset. I don't think he's a top play tomorrow. I like Herbert and Allen with a side of Josh Palmer. I think Herbert has a nice day tomorrow. So I'll definitely have some shares of Herbert on the road. Um, and if I'm betting on a touchdown in this game, it's Devontae Adams. I really like Carr sneakily on FanDuel. He's 7.3K. Josh Jacobs is questionable. If Josh Jacobs doesn't play, it should be a passing game script. Now, they don't have a lot of weapons, even with Jacobs. It's Amir Abdullah and some other things, Brandon Bolden and White. And then it's Adams and Matt Collins and Keelan Cole. It's just not a thing. So I think just Adams gets a ton of work, um, and I think Carr at home. Again, the Chargers have they do have a defense, but the Raiders are favored at home, and at a 26-point total. Now I think that's partly factoring Jacobs, but he's just been on fire. But if he doesn't play, we'll see. Let's just say if he does play. Again, I can't play him on FanDuel at 9.5K. I'm not chasing what he did last week. I'm just not playing a $10,000 Jacobs. I'd rather play Adams and save the money and go find somebody else because I think he's equally apt to have a big day tomorrow versus Jacobs. So, um, yeah, I think that's really it for this game. Last game, but not least, the Chiefs at the Bengals. Very intriguing matchup because you've got Mahomes on the road. Mahomes is just money, right? I mean, Mahomes is Mahomes. I don't see a scenario where you can't play him. He's at 9K. I think he's a top play tomorrow on FanDuel. Travis Kelsey just keeps getting it done. They just nobody can stick the guy. They find a way to get him open. The scheme, Andy Reid just finds a way to get guys open. The receiving core is just it's all over the place. You can't really like fall in love with anybody. So you just got to look at the price. Now Kelsey's 8.4K. He's been hovering around that. So he's in play. Mahomes 9K. The running back Pacheco, he runs hard. His price is up though. He's up to 7K. I don't know that I love that in Cincinnati. I think they throw it around so you can sprinkle in the Jujus. I think MVS looked nice last week, and then it's Sky Moore and Justin Watson. They still don't have Tony back, so but they're again. Oh yeah, they have a 28 implied total, so that's a little more than the one I talked about earlier. Cincinnati at home. You know they're getting Chase back, it looks like. So if Jamar Chase and Mixon play, this really changes the dynamic of the game. The only thing is, I think Mixon is closer to not playing than playing. But that could always change, especially with concussions. So you got to look for that news because if he doesn't play, I do like P Ryan at 7.1K. He's very tough. He runs hard. He runs it and he catches it. I won't play Jamar Chase at almost 9K in his first game back in weeks. Probably have a limited snap count. So it'd still be T. Higgins. I sneakily really like Tyler Boyd tomorrow, especially at 6.3K. I think that's a buy price. And I think with or without Jamar Chase, he has potential tomorrow. So for the cost, I think that's the price I'm buying him at. Um, yeah, I think that's it. So that's 12 games. I'm going to put my lineups together now and then start looking at these bets. So we'll see how we do. And good luck to everybody, all four of you.